morning, everyone. I'm Christin Daniels, and this is Amber Halvorson. She's my partner, and we own a marketing agency called Inspired Vibe. But we are not here to talk about us. We're here to talk about Chris Yoo. Chris, good morning.
Morning.
And with that, I'll introduce Chris. Chris, you are the Managing Director at Xcellerant Ventures, an Arizona-based venture fund. Chris has spent 25 plus years in healthcare and life science technology. He's developed early personalized medicine solutions for companies like Cisco, Applied Biosystems, Oracle, and IBM. He is a serial entrepreneur with a focus on personalized medicine and innovative companies, as well as he is an educator, board member, and holds advanced degrees from UC Berkeley and Yale. Okay, overachiever, welcome. All right, let's dive in. 20 years ago, the HealthTech, MedTech, and TechBio verticals were fairly solidly defined. Now that everything has become information science, the lines you said are blurred. Today we're going to discuss the local market as it relates to those three verticals, and then we'll discuss the increased relevance of both AI and data today. So let's talk about the local market first. Why is the fail early, fail fast approach important for startups?
And just before we get into that, I wanted to thank Phoenix Startup Week. This has been an amazing week. We're going to have an amazing day here focused on HealthTech, MedTech, TechBio. And I want to thank you guys for being on stage with me, since I've been a difficult guest. So just put that out there. But yeah, I think it's interesting that we talk a lot about how important it is to find technologies and solutions at the intersections of disciplines. So whether you're a biologist or you're a computer scientist or an engineer, the intersections are where magical things happen, right? And I think we're going to hear later today from some of our great startups and industry leaders about that. But to me, the past 20 years, you can look at technology and how it's developed and how it's impacted our lives, and there's nothing really more important than our health. As we started the day thinking about how important our lives are and how important it is to think about how we conduct ourselves and how our health matters to us, right? So you look at your watches and you say, hey, I walked so many steps, or I didn't, right? And you have to make constant decisions. And I think the future state of healthcare and life sciences is about systems that make decisions for us. So that's, to me, where the big divide is going to happen. There's not another fifth industrial revolution or sixth or seventh. It's going to be before AI and after AI, and how AI is going to make decisions for us. So how do we take all this interdisciplinary activity where we're using our brains and our connectability, myself as a cell biologist from the past with computer scientists and engineers like Evan up here in front. How do we do that when decisions are being made for us? Decisions which we don't even know or can control. I think those are the challenges of the future, that the past, say, 20 years, it's just going to be night and day. And we, I think as an industry, need to be prepared for that and understand how to deal with those types of solutions.
How does your experience in the Bay Area, coming back to the local market, how does your experience in the Bay Area compare to Phoenix's potential for growth in these three sectors?
And that's a great segue, because I think what I've noticed here in Phoenix is there are so many fantastic ideas. And as a managing director in Xcellerant Ventures, our job is to find the ones that can become great big ideas and hopefully great commercial successes. It's a very hard job, because here in Phoenix, tremendous ideas. When I look out into the audience, I see many entrepreneurs who I've talked to and I've heard their wonderful ideas, but it seems like in Phoenix, there's a strong reliance on validation. That validation is generally revenue. Right? Can the startup generate revenue? Can it be validated by customers? And it's the very lucky few who have identified investors who perhaps don't need to see that right away. Because you're not going to get this incredible flowering and blossoming of technologies and startups if we don't give enough space for them to develop their technologies first. I think Phoenix is changing. Bay Area, you can raise money on an idea. I was just telling Blake here earlier this morning, it's straightforward, I think, to raise money on an idea in the Bay Area. Here, it seems to be, we rely a lot on proof and revenue. And I think that shift has to start to happen where we don't need to see revenue right away. We need to see great ideas and founders who come with experience. And that, I think, is probably part of the reason there isn't, there is a reliance on validation is there aren't a lot of repeat entrepreneurs, successful startups that have exited. We're just a young market, but we're going to get there.
I know I'm looking at Christin because we work with business owners, do businesses all the time in what we do. And I know both of us, what advice, we're thinking about if I'm that business owner, what advice would you have for those local businesses then who can better position themselves to get that funding at that idea stage?
So number one is we're right now in the ASU, Sun Devil Stadium, we're surrounded by incredibly bright people at these R1, as they call them, R1 research institutions. Having the support and involvement of experts, whether as advisors or even some of the faculty here want to start startups as well, but they just don't know how, right? So there are groups like the Heal Lab that Rick Hall, who will be speaking next, has run for the past couple of years that help encourage those startups to have those strong relationships with universities like ASU. So having that type of credibility is important, especially in the healthcare and life sciences, because solutions are technically complicated. The pathway to commercialization can be long because of the regulatory steps that you normally need to go through. And it does take this kind of need to develop a team with experience and expertise.
And don't forget all of that, right? Chris and I over here, from the marketing perspective, so much of that is just the ability to tell your story or find the people around you who can help you develop that story. I love that. Okay, let's get on the hot topic of the world right now, AI, right? I like what you said, there's this world before AI and after AI. I also think electric vehicles are going to be the same. We're going to be from that generation where we were a part of the transition. But let's dive into AI specifically. What are the effects and potential issues of using AI and data automation in these three sectors? And how, from your perspective, can we ensure responsible use? Because there's this shadow side to this technology.
That's a great question, and I don't know that I have the answer to it except to tell you what I myself am going through and seeing is I'm very uncomfortable. When you hear, the scions of the industry, Elon Musk and Bill Gates and others saying, well, maybe we should take a pause, right? We should pause, Elon sending rockets up that are, his trial and error method is to explode rockets, yeah. Right? Okay, so when he's saying maybe we should slow down, yeah. That should be telling all of us, well, yeah, things are changing at such a rapid pace, we need to pay attention. And to me, again, it boils down to decisions, right? So AI used to be, let me support you and you make the decision, right? So for a physician, we invested in a company called AdvaNow. AdvaNow, run by James Bates, a great technology using algorithms to help triage patients as they come in to see physicians. It helps physicians do their job faster and better, right? But now we're at a stage with GPT-4, right? GPT-4, where the technology can make its own decisions and pass, all kinds of tests that are set up to determine whether you can be a doctor or not, right? So GPT-4 just recently passed the, I think, boards 1 and 2 for the U.S. medical system, right? So there's a doctor, right? So what does it tell me? To me, the worry is that if we relinquish control of major decisions, should I put a patient on this drug or that drug, right? Should we, reimburse for a procedure or not? Should we, think about whether there is accuracy in the system and the treatment? I don't think any of those controls are in place yet. and we need to catch up to how fast the technology is moving. That's what worries me, decision-making taking out of our hands, or things that have to do with our health and, healthcare and life sciences.
So what I hear you saying then is focusing on the individual, at the individual decision-making level, when it comes to matter of health, wellness, and individual safety, and overall organizational risk, right? Because if you are putting this decision in ChatGPT's hands, and you're putting the health and wellness of your organization on the line, that's a big deal. And we've never encountered that before as founders. We've never had to think about these things before. You're moving so hard and so fast, whether it's in one of these sectors or another one, just to monetize and create that stability. And so I think there's this very natural draw to go to these tools to say, I can do more. I can get more out of my day. I can speed my day up. But what I hear you saying is that we have to be very, very careful at that individual level to make sure we're not putting major decisions in the hands of a bot.
Well, and in the healthcare industry, there are a lot of studies that show that somewhere around 100,000 deaths are caused by medical error every year. And so the big thing was GPT-4, can make accurate medical diagnoses 80% of the time now, which is better than your average physician, right, when they do the tests on them. But what happens to, 100,000 medical deaths? Let's say GPT-4 is implemented in some way. 20,000 people are still going to die from a medical error that a computer might have made. So where's the liability? Where's the responsibility? Where's the accountability? Nobody knows. It's a bioethics problem that I think we all really, as an industry, need to think about. And actually, that was pretty doom and gloom, but as an opportunity, I think for founders and entrepreneurs, it's a great time to be thinking about the problem that way, right? Making sure you have the responsibility in mind as we deploy these systems.
Yeah, I think it seems like it's great to use it as a starting point, but then you need to be using your human intellect and discernment in order to kind of bring the whole thing home. So when it comes to diagnosing someone, I think there's circumstances that ChatGPT isn't going to be aware of, maybe, so how do you foresee how this will be regulated?
I think that it will have to be similar to the industry of gene editing. So a couple of years back, I actually gave a presentation at the hackathon event that ASU's Heal Lab put on a couple of years ago. And this had happened just at the time when a Chinese researcher had edited the embryos of what was later two healthy born daughters to this mother. And that just sparked this enormous, I would say, attention and discussion, and then finally moratorium across the globe by researchers in gene editing to say, okay, we're not going to do that with human embryos. It's just not going to happen. We need rules in place before we do that. I think the same will happen in our industry, which is someone's going to deploy a GPT-4 or higher level GPT in the medical system. They're going to use it. There's going to be some event, and that will spark this discussion and hopefully a global response where people who are in charge of regulating the healthcare system realize, yeah, we do need to kind of come up with some guidelines and put a pause on things.
Yeah. So we hope it's not named Christin Daniels' act of the tragedy that happened with AI or the Amber Halvorson.
And the thing is, I like to think that I'm an adopter of technology, right? I'm an early adopter of technology, right? But this is one of those cases where things are truly moving so fast without the proper guidelines in place. We are at risk, I would say.
Did you want to go into data?
I think too, we gotta pick it up a little bit. This is really doom and gloom. We gotta flip the script a little bit here. This is a rough start for Thursday, Chris.
Well, they had the party last night, right? So everyone's just kind of sobering up.
Was everybody at the happy hour last night? Woo!
There you go.
Yes, that's the Thursday energy we're looking for. So you had talked to us about the importance of having a data strategy, and what's interesting is that you said, not just for companies, but for individuals, it's personal responsibility to understand your data. And so can you talk to us about that?
Yeah, definitely. Okay, picking it up a bit. So how many of you have an Apple Watch or other tracker for your health, daily health? So about half the audience. So the other half does not. So how do you know that you're exercising enough, or that, you know, your heart rate is normal, or nowadays even there are technologies that measure your blood pressure, and in the future your glucose levels? Does anyone think that's not important to know? So I think for those of you who don't have a device yet, you will have one. Whether it's something that you buy or in the future might be sponsored by your employer or your health system. And those wearables will really enable us to gather more information about ourselves. So the question is, do I own that? You know, if my employer sponsors something for me to be healthier, does the employer own that data? It's up to us to make sure that we own our data and can donate it, as they call it, to the causes that we think are important. So every single one of us have causes that we believe in, things that matter to us. And the data, which is, people call it the new gold or the new oil, is what will be valuable in the future. So understanding what you're collecting and how that's valuable to you, and to be able to utilize that for the causes that matter to you, those are the things that we should think about as individuals. And I think that's really important, that, you know, isn't really taught anywhere.
I wanted to break that down a little bit too, because I think where we make that decision is when you're agreeing to the terms and conditions, when you're downloading that new software.
Lawyers.
So how can, back to lawyers again. But how can what does that really look like in the future to take an assertive position in making decisions about your data? Because again, if I'm downloading this, I'm just like, scroll to the bottom and hit accept, right? What else is that? What does that look like?
I'm really excited by not just the wearables, but also the molecular diagnostics that are coming today and are now actually available. So another of the companies that we invested in is called TSIS, and they just announced they have a test that's available to anyone for a couple $100, I believe. And for an individual, they basically do genomic analysis and can tell you what thousands of combinations of drugs may be not good for you, right? Adverse drug reaction tests. So just having that available to you and being able to know, okay, I shouldn't take this with that, is very important, and it is important to you and your family's health. If everyone had that, many of those medical errors we talked about would be impacted, right? There wouldn't be as many, people having to go to the emergency room, et cetera. So that's just one example. And I think that knowing that there is nothing preventing us from saying information that's generated from my body is mine, no matter what all that legalese is, I think is a right that we have to stand up for ourselves. I like the fact that the NIH has this initiative called data donorship, right? I mentioned that just briefly, but for example, if you're a cancer survivor, being able to donate the data about your treatment journey, you can do that to help others out there in the community who may become cancer patients. So I think that whole philosophy of owning your data and then being able to do what you want with it is critical.
Yeah, I know a few cancer survivors, and it really is, they'll stop a conversation dead in its tracks if they feel like they can give some advice to someone that can prevent them from getting, into the same situation. So I love that. That's a beautiful thing. And I'm just curious if this type of data will be, do you foresee it being available to everyone, or is it sort of a premium?
Well, so how many you guys know about 23andMe, right? So how many of you have done the 23andMe test? It's a significant number, probably a third of the audience. We want to know more about ourselves. It's just natural for us to learn about our biology and to know about how that impacts our relationship with others, including our family members. So as we realize that the community is actually not just family, but larger and larger, I think that makes us all want to have access to it, and it will drive more of the commercialization towards answering that consumer need. So the more we demand it, the more demand is there. I think great startups will pop up that will answer that need. I will say also that what's really cool about Phoenix is we're actually on the forefront and have been with the whole genomic revolution, right? So TGen came 20 years ago now, I think, at this point, to the Valley, and brought with it this whole understanding that you can do these type of analyses anywhere, right? Phoenix was, at that time, didn't have a medical school downtown. They just started the whole Phoenix Biomedical Core, starting to kind of aggregate more hospitals and medical experts. And I'll say, just shout out to Jeff Trent for coming here and being a visionary and saying, genomics can happen anywhere. And genomics is the ultimate in understanding the blueprint of what makes us who we are. And I think all of us are going to want that at some point.
Yeah, so the biggest piece of it, I think, is the education, educating the public about it and the power of it. I think we've all been conditioned, right, to just kind of go to the doctor and say, oh, you say so? Okay, sure. And not really have a full understanding of what is happening inside of our body, what might be causing it. And so that's really powerful and exciting.
So one other thing I'll state as far as what's next, right? I think genomics will tell us a little bit about what the blueprint is. But the next step is, just look at the pandemic and how quickly we answered a need, a very serious, important, immediate need. The next step is more of the kind of real-time things in our lives, right? So understanding the metabolism of our system, how we react to it, what are the kind of natural substances that we put into it, and what happens. There's a founder in the audience right now who's been working on a migraine solution that's a natural product, and he's gone through the same steps as a BioTech might to prove that this is a real effect. Learning about that and knowing that those are things that we can analyze and understand and that are personalized, I think that's what's coming. We will rely on AI to help us with that, by the way.
And so that's the positive part of the talk, ladies and gentlemen. Because what I hear you say in that is, in this sort of super train that we're on and moving forward and getting more information, the value out of all of this, though, is that we become more educated, right? We have more at our fingertips, and that allows us to make better decisions, ultimately living healthier lives. Chris, did you want to open it up to some questions?
Yeah, I would love to ask the audience, what matters to you? So at Xcellerant, we divide the healthcare and life sciences into HealthTech, so technology that affects your health or the health system. MedTech, which is kind of physical devices, things that achieve a better human condition. And then what we like to think of as TechBio, which is industrial, automated, scalable solutions applied to biology. So there's all kinds of stuff in there: molecular diagnostics, health informatics, medical devices. If there were something that you would say, okay, that's the area I want to build my company, that's the space where I think at Phoenix there would be a great place to build a solution, what would that be?
So Chris covered three verticals where we play outside.
So you've talked about the three verticals, and you've talked about the magic happens at the intersection of multidisciplinary activities. That's what we believe in. I think one of the topics that I don't see in the Phoenix ecosystem is getting outside of the FDA-regulated space of overall health and wellness, as you talk about natural products, etc. I think we are seeing very strong macro trends, especially in the newer, more younger generations, that there is more acceptance, more adoption of those broader, more holistic wellness concepts. The question that comes to my mind is that integration and interception, and how AI could have a play in that, because you've got two camps right now. Right, you got the doctors, right, and then you've got the naturopaths, and they don't talk to each other. So, we see magic happening if you could get the two to intersect, right? Because we believe that we're not, sum of parts, but we work as a holistic human being. So, how do you see the two connecting in your vision?
Yeah, that's a great question, because only you know how you feel, and the symptoms that you express, whether you're healthy or you have a condition that you want to treat, only you know best how you are feeling, right? And it's the interpretation by the physician or the naturopath or the GPT-4 that then may come up with some idea as to what the cause may be and how to treat it. But it's going to multiple, it's just like, I go for the second opinion, third opinion, fourth opinion. It's going to multiple experts and coming up with a consensus. And frankly, that's what AI does in its algorithmic approach, right? It's just weighing different probabilities and then saying, okay, this is the most likely from all the different analyses that it's doing in the back end. So I think a lot of it just has to do with seeing enough experts and convening those experts together, and you as an individual integrating that, integrating the results. Now, will AI help you do that? Absolutely. More than likely, it'll be a tool that we use to interpret complex information. But it's up to the human to integrate it. Does that answer the question?
Yeah, I think.
Other questions? I was curious about naturopaths using AI. You're seeing that?
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. I mean, again, I think it touches every aspect of our lives now, and we may not know it. And it will now be one of those things where, do we trust that decisions that are made for us come from a human or a computer? I mean, every time you do a search, you're already using technologies that are based on this generative AI. And soon it'll become, how much is the physician or the naturopath making decisions based on their experience versus the algorithms are telling them?
I think some of us don't trust either one. So it'll be interesting, as this evolves, if it kind of marries the two together, and okay, I don't really trust either one, but together I feel a little bit better.
And later today, this morning, we'll hear from Jasmine Badi about nurses. I think there's a human component. To me, the pandemic kind of not only caused a lot of suffering, but it also disconnected us from other humans. And I think as it's good timing for us to be coming back into wanting to be in the same room with each other, especially as this AI technology comes on board, because there's nothing going to replace this type of interaction, and it's the key, I think.
Yeah, I heard that one time. Somebody said, do I want AI utilized when researching everything that's ever happened on a treatment to something that I'm suffering from? Yes. Do I want AI telling me I have cancer? Telling me I have my diagnosis? No.
That's right. I think trust is key, and I'd rather trust a human than a machine at the moment. That may change as it gets more and more accurate, though.
Do you have a Tesla? Do you do?
I do. Yeah, early adopter, right? Has anyone in the room gotten in one of the Waymos without the driver here in town? What was your experience like?
Overall, I think it was pretty good.
Yeah, overall, I thought it was pretty good, except for when it couldn't make a left-hand turn downtown somewhere, so it drove us in the circle 3 times, and I finally had to tell it, I'm gonna get out. And you know, they got on the little, there's a little screen inside where they will get on and say, is everything okay? Are you safe? You know, why are you trying to stop the ride early? And I was like, well, we've circled the block 3 times now, so I'm just gonna walk to my destination. But other than that, it was great.
So, and I think that's, instructive for the medical field, right? What if the AI system keeps telling you, you have, this, you have this, you have this, because you keep presenting with the same symptoms. And yet again, you know best what you are feeling and what may be the cause. And therefore, seeing a human, I think, and being able to convince it that the algorithms aren't enough is important.
I think we got a question or comment over here.
Yes, I also experienced Waymo, and I was talking with a friend of mine who was a journalist in Iran, and then I told her that Chandler and Houston is the home for Waymo. And I did lots of research about it, and I find out Waymo is the most experienced driver because their data is centralized. So I think I trust Waymo much more than I trust drivers.
And we are evidence-based creatures, right? We like to see that the data supports, the conclusion. And I think for simpler tasks in medicine, that will be the case, right? Like I come back to Advent now as an example. There are things that will make the system much more efficient for all of us. But the more complex things, creativity, yeah. But AI can now create paintings and compose music. And yesterday I just saw an example of AI writing code in 10 different types of languages, Python and C# and et cetera, just instantaneously. So the generative part is what's really new and shockingly good. The part that we haven't yet kind of understood is how does it deal with really complex things? And then, in medical school they teach you, when you hear hoofs, don't think zebras, think horses, right? But every now and then there's going to be a zebra. And will automated systems see that or not? And sometimes it's a physician with a gut instinct saying, that is a zebra.
That's true. How about lawyers? Do you think how soon AI can replace lawyers? Because
right away.
You gotta tell Doug, we did not plan this question.
Caveat, one of my partners in the venture fund used to be the dean of the law school at ASU, Doug Sylvester, so I'm sure his ears are burning. But I think there are a lot of things that have been protected in a way, right, by this asymmetry of knowledge, right? I got all the knowledge and you don't, and therefore you have to pay me a lot of money for my knowledge. That I think is going to get more and more democratized. That's the really good thing about where technology has taken us is the democratization. But that said, there again is nothing like the human to human connection, and I don't think we'll be able to replace that anytime soon.
See, now you can tell Doug he should have been here to defend himself.
I think we have one more question over here.
Okay, so when you talk about zebras and the human component of analyzation, a lot of this tech work has been done for dis-ease, degenerative identification. What are your thoughts on the future in terms of disability?
Thank you, great question. The other really wonderful thing about technology is the way it can make us all able to do things that perhaps, in a disabled setting you couldn't before. And I would say that if we're successful in deploying in more intelligent systems that can understand what we want, those are great companies to start. Right? I think right now, technology is at a point where the cost to develop intelligence in a system is low, and the manufacturing and other capabilities that are here in the Valley make it so that you can create solutions. So from a kind of a, like, let's call it a medical device perspective, I think you're seeing a lot of these companies starting now. And you're seeing some of the first of them actually, in the news. You're gonna see a lot more. But we need to complement that with people who understand conditions and who can actually relate. And I think, Mei-Ling, you're one of the, pioneers in this space. We need accelerators. We need business support for people to be able to start these companies. So pretty excited about that field and where it's going to go.
Why do leaders in innovation in the United States wanted to put a 6-month moratorium on AI?
Yeah, we were just talking about that.
I'm sorry if I missed that.
No problem.
Okay.
But thank you for bringing it back to us.
Sure.
I think maybe we can close up on that point, which is, I think it's smart for all of us as, I guess, a society, global society, to think more carefully about whether what we are doing with AI is more beneficial than harmful, and identify those things, especially in the industry of healthcare and life sciences, that should be put in place to make sure that we are doing it properly. And again, I'll come back to gene editing as a good example of, yes, these things need to be regulated and we need to slow down the pace of it to understand the impact.
Thank you so much. I read an article the other day that Elon Musk and others were saying the robots are going to take us over if we don't take a knee here. So great, wonderful. Let's give it up for Chris and Amber and Christina. Thank you so much. We're just waiting for Mayor Corey Woods. He's trying to figure out how to get to us, so he'll be here in a minute. I got it. Thank you so much. I'm trying something new. We're a startup too, so we're pivoting. I brought a chiropractor for you guys. She's in a bus, and she's sitting out front. Her name is Dr. Becky, and she has chiropractic care in a bus. If you want to get adjusted today, she's sitting out there and ready to help you. I thought it would be fun. It's MedTech. She's a cool person. She's got good energy. Speaking of energy, so, one second. We'll just break for a second, wait for the mayor to get here. Go see Dr. Becky. She'll straighten you out. We'll be right back.